Welcome back to Theresa.is.Dead. My name is Theresa and I'm very much alive. And if you're new here, welcome. I have an awful garbage mouth where I tend to use the word fuck as a comma. If you're not into that or weird stuff in general, this is not the place for you. Feel free to exit the video here. No harm, no foul. But I'll remember our time fondly. Today I have a very special video. I'm so excited to do this because I get to collaborate with my good friend on here, Georgia Harris. I don't know why I just became a Southern lady, but whatever. I love Georgia Harris. She is awesome. Not only are we YouTube colleagues, but we've actually developed a nice little friendship outside of YouTube where hopefully I'll be visiting her, where I get to live under her staircase like Harry Potter. Or is Alex supposed to live there and I get my own guest room? I forget, but whatever. We're gonna be eating Culver's and living our best goddamn life, and I'm so excited. Georgia has a wonderful channel. And if you don't know who Georgia is, you're fucking out of your mind. Please go check her out. She's fantastic and wonderful, and she's doing like this whole renaissance on minimalism. And if I wasn't such a garbage human being, I totally would be on board. But like, I have issues. I love stuff too much. Don't mind that I changed my lipstick. I realized, oh man, I should probably change my outfit to look like I filmed this on a different day. And then I was like, I'll just change my lipstick. And then I was like, I'm kind of wearing the same shirt. So... Don't mind any of that. I have a very small time where I get to film videos before I go to work, so yeah. The magic of editing. Okay, so Georgia came up with this great idea to do a vlogmas about bad makeup I still like. Now, it took me a bit to understand the concept of it. Normally, if I don't like something, I tend to get rid of it right away, or so I thought. However, it took me thoroughly looking through my collection to realize that I have been hoarding some bad makeup for various reasons. Maybe it's because of sentiment, maybe because I think it's pretty. In this video, I'm going to talk mostly about eyeshadow palettes, but there is one face palette that is within the mix. So the first product I want to talk about is actually the handbook for the recently deceased. And this came out in Hot Topics sometime last year. I reviewed this about a year ago, and I think I gave it a favorable review because I genuinely felt at the time it wasn't a bad product. I think now using this product, I don't know if I would agree with that sentiment. You know, I think it's fine for what it is, but it's not amazing by any means. It's not gonna be winning any awards. It's not one of those staple pieces that everybody needs to have. It's okay. It's not even that okay. It's like, okay? And I think it's because since I've been on YouTube and I've been trying out different brands and also getting better at eyeshadow techniques for the past year, that I feel like I have a better understanding of what a good product is, or at least in my mind anyway. And I'll be completely honest, if it didn't have this adorable packaging, there was no fucking way I would have this in my collection. It's so adorable. I have a love for Beetlejuice, and I believe the story that I paired with that video, which was talking about my grandparents, is the reason why I still have this in my collection. So it's kind of more of a sentiment for me. But it's definitely not good makeup. The same is gonna go for these two palettes. And again, these are Hot Topic releases. There's a Nightmare on Elm Street palette called the Never Sleep Again palette and the No Place to Hide Friday the 13th palette. And honestly, this is the only reason why I have these palettes. Because of that. Because of the fact that they are magnetic and they stick together and they look really fucking cool. And the horror nerd in me loves these so much. The makeup, on the other hand,
not so much, boo-boo. It's not good.
You know, and again, I think when I reviewed these palettes, I was being very generous because I think I actually preferred this palette over this one. I had a little bit more difficulty with the Nightmare on Elm Street palette. The color story was a little bit more on par, but the color story was, in my opinion, a little bit weak for Friday the 13th. I just love the outside packaging of it. And Hot Topic makeup in general is very hit or miss, and usually when I say that, it's more of a miss actually than anything. I don't think I have anything from Hot Topic that I'm like,
oh my god, shit my pants, this is fucking great, I'm literally gonna change the world with this.
These are things that I just have in my collection because of what they are. Like I mentioned, the horror nerd in me just lives for this, and I would feel terrible getting rid of this, even though I will never use it, and I look at it from afar. This fucking thing. So this is the Lime Crime Immortalis palette. I don't know why I have this in my collection. This was hot garbage, and if you haven't seen that review, I'll link it in the corner there. This was terrible. This is bad. This is probably one of the worst palettes I've ever fucking tried in 2019. And why am I holding on to it? That's a great fucking question. This color story is so fucking beautiful. And I think I have it because I like to just look at the color story. And then when I try to use it, I go,
That's right, it's a shitty palette.
Aesthetically, this is speaking to the 14-year-old goth girl inside me that's trying to conjure up demons in her closet. And it's funny because I hate this palette, but I don't know if I can part with this palette. It's like when you're hungry and you keep going to the fridge and you keep opening the fridge door, keep expecting to see a fucking sandwich appear. There's never a sandwich because you don't have any money to the end of the week and the last thing you bought was some stupid fucking eyeshadow palette instead of buying groceries. Yeah. Too real? Okay. But no, in all seriousness, it's like that. It's like that feeling of like keep going to the fridge and hoping something's going to appear. In my case, I keep going to this palette hoping that this is going to prove me wrong and then I would happily make a video saying that I'm a fucking idiot and this is beautiful. But it ain't happening, bitch. So the next palette is from Jeffree Star and it's a Thirsty palette. I don't like this palette. This palette is kind of trash. It really is. Sorry if you really enjoy it, but not my cup of tea. I really tried to convince myself that this was a decent palette, and in reality, it wasn't. Now, aesthetically, I love how it looks because it reminds me of when I grew up with my grandparents in a candy store, especially the summers growing up. And basically, I used to live in a neighborhood that was run by the mafia. And honestly, when I look at this palette, it reminds me of when all the mobsters used to come into my grandparents' candy store to use her payphone to do their quote-unquote business. And it would give me and my brother a couple of bucks to go to the arcade across the street where ultimately my brother played in the arcade and I just purchased a popsicle and just sat and watched my brother play games. So that's what this reminds me of. It gives me like these really kind of funny, fond, weird memories. And they say mobsters are terrible. You know, I'll use it from time to time and I'm always reminded that I don't like this palette. And yet it's somehow just still in my fucking collection. So the next two palettes are actually from Violet Voss and it's the Flamingo eyeshadow palette as well as the Blush and Highlighter palette. When I first saw these palettes, I was completely in love. And I assumed that these products were going to be everything that I need. As someone who adores Violet Voss quality, there is something lacking about these palettes. I remember liking them when I first received them, but I think after time I realized they're not really consistent to other Violet Voss palettes. The face palette in itself barely works for me. The eyeshadow palette is okay. There's certain softness to the pigmentation, and when I compare it to other brands, I realize I have to work a little bit harder when using these palettes to have something show up on my face. Why I have them is because this reminds me of my childhood in the 90s. It reminds me of going to Florida and listening to Four Non Blondes' What's Up on repeat and roasting to death in the middle of August while waiting in line to go on Splash Mountain. It reminds me of times where things were less scary and way more simple. So the next thing I want to talk about is the Tarte Aspen Obard palette. I can't get rid of this palette. This palette's fucking terrible. She had people messaging me, they want to buy this from me. No. And the reason why I still have this in my collection is that when I started YouTube, this was my first video to get over 1,000 views. And at that time, it was so fucking exciting because I only started YouTube, I think a couple months prior to that. I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm famous. That is the only video that I actually got a lot of hate for, which is hilarious now, but I remember this one woman was like,
"You don't know anything about makeup."
Very dramatic. And then I was awful for hating on this palette. And I remember that was my first hate comment I've ever received on YouTube. And I remember how fixated I was. And then I started Googling the shit out of the lady because, you know, a lot of people don't realize when you leave your actual name there, or if you have a very unique handle, 9 out of 10 times you've used that handle for something else. And then you can find out a lot about that person. Like where she lives and where she works. The internet's a funny place. But anyway, I digress. But I also continue to keep this too because my mom purchased this for me on Mother's Day. So that was when we had our mommy-daughter day. So I've actually been meaning to put this in a shadow box. I will never fucking get rid of this one. And last but not least, I have the Natasha Sunset palette. Fuck this fucking palette and its fucking face. I hate this fucking palette. I hate how influenced I was to get this palette. The quality is garbage and the yellow in this is so fucking weak. And the reason why I hold on to this palette is because it inspired me to do 2 things. 1, to start a YouTube channel, and to always be on that quest for motherfucking yellow. I remember realizing when I couldn't return it, how fucking angry I was that I spent $129 on a fucking paperweight. I remember thinking to myself, wow, there needs to be more fucking channels that are honest out there. Not just MUAs, but actual people that are makeup enthusiasts talking about makeup. Of course, the caveat to that is that makeup is truly subjective. What works for someone may not work for everyone. But it was enough drive for me to start a channel and to deliver honesty to consumers like myself. The average everyday person who just wants to know if they're wasting their money or not. And didn't get this in motherfucking PR. So I keep this palette to remind me never to be influenced by anyone. So that's it. I want to hear from you guys. Let me know down below what bad makeup you keep in your collection. Is it because of sentiment? Is it because you're really just hoping that it's gonna fucking work someday? Let me know because I love hearing from you. And please go check out Georgia Harris and her video. She's a fucking peach. I love her fucking face. With that said, I want to say thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate it as always. Feel free to like, comment, hit that subscribe button. It's fucking free. And hit that bell icon for notification of all my future posts. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Patreon, Discord. On Thursdays, we have a podcast called Miserable 3, sometimes on my husband's Twitch channel, or just yell about bullshit on the internet, along with where to get my merch. Everything will be listed in the description box below. And I'll see you little pumpkins later. Bye.